last time I read a book in one day, the pages were cardboard. And I read it with my niece, so because she gave...
Okay, so...
Would you like to retract your last statement?
Which one?
Research Podcast.
Oh, we're live, baby.
We're live.
Thanks for tuning in.
What's up, man?
Dude, nothing much. Things are good, though.
Good.
Yeah, things are good. Feeling good. Looking forward to fall.
What about it? What's your favorite fall thing?
We're making strides in fall. Honestly, my favorite fall thing is postseason professional baseball.
Okay, tell me more.
For the entire month of October, nothing but professional postseason baseball. And that's what it is.
I'm intrigued.
So it's the playoffs for the MLB starts like literally October. Like today should I say the date?
Well, no, you shouldn't say the date. Because
Like
you're going to ruin the magic of the show.
Fair enough. Like the first games start on October 1st and go through the entire month. And then the World Series is the last week of October. Sometimes it bleeds into the first day or two of November.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
So, yeah, all of October.
October, we're like, well, by the time this releases, we will have known, right? We will. We will have known.
It's
because does it end when October ends?
I believe Game 7 is scheduled for November 2nd. Game 7 of the World Series is scheduled for November 2nd. But yeah, it's fantastic. So
which is a Saturday. So this we'll have just found out probably last week.
So just 4 weeks of the best teams in baseball trying to win that World Series title. Insane games. I love it.
Right on.
That was loud. But yeah, so it's fall and it's the time of year my wife starts stealing all my flannels.
Well, that sounds about right.
Well, that's just something you kind of have to, something you just accept when you get married.
That's true. Although, one of my favorite things about fall is just being in cozy clothes. You know what I mean?
Amen. Maybe you relate to this. I'm a bit of a husky guy.
Yeah. And you're looking at me right now. You tell me if I relate.
And I enjoy wearing just clothes that are a little bit baggier.
Yeah.
I feel like they just fit on me better. They look better. Hide some of my imperfections. And I just feel like I look good in a nice hoodie.
Yep.
Nice pair of jeans.
Yeah.
Throw a cap, throw a beanie in there.
It's easy, man.
I love fall style.
Yeah. I mean, when we were in high school, we are millennials. And so, skinny jeans and stuff were a big deal.
Sure.
And I fell victim to that trait for sure. So I wore skinny jeans, and then
even like the first couple years of college, it was like still really big, and it was like, yeah, let me try these out.
Yeah. So that was kind of a problem maybe. But then I just don't care anymore, and I think we've hit a certain age where I just don't really care.
Well, I think
I just want to be comfortable.
I think you also start to find what works for you.
Sure.
Right? And you're like, you know what? I don't have to lie to myself. Just because these are in doesn't mean I look good in them. But here's what I do look good in.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And you start figuring out your style and run with it. So to all of our younger listeners, just find what works for you and go with it.
And don't care what other people think, because their opinions won't matter to you soon anyway. Yeah, and they never really have. Because the truth is, they are so worried about themselves, they will never realize that what you thought about them ever mattered.
Yeah. So this was our life advice segment from our show that we're trying to sprinkle in every now and then, apparently.
We've been doing that in most episodes now, which
just kind of keeps coming up.
Feels like we're kind of losing the grasp on what our original goal was, but
we're like, let's just have a real moment for all the young people that are obviously listening to our show.
This is the Low Grade Research Podcast where we talk directly to those who don't have dads. We're going to teach you all the things dads teach you.
Ooh.
like how to hold a flashlight wrong, or I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere, and I botched it.
Yeah, we'll post a video on that soon enough.
Yeah, like an actual video of Mitch's dad yelling at him, like last week.
As an adult, yeah. Holding the flashlight around. No, things have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoying the weather.
Yeah, this is my favorite like time of year. You probably knew that about me because we've been friends for a really long time. But
I did know that about you.
But like October, I love October. I love spooky season. And then just, I'm a huge fan of the holidays. Everything feels so special and magical. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it just gives you a lot of, like, the zest of life feels like it's a little bit more for a minute.
Totally.
So, yeah. I've always been kind of, we celebrate Christmas and Thanksgiving in our house. And so we've always had Christmas trees and stuff like that. And my family has always generally gone out to cut our own tree up in the mountains, which is, I've got a lot of good family memories doing that. But we've always been like morally opposed almost to putting anything up before like Thanksgiving.
Christmas wise?
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was like in our house, it was like you got Halloween stuff in October. November was just kind of fall themed. And then the day after or the couple of days after Thanksgiving was when we'd go up to go cut our tree.
Yeah.
But then you didn't put any Christmas stuff up until then. But then we hit COVID and we were so gosh darn depressed that we decided just to put up stuff like, I think we put up Christmas decorations like November 1st.
Oh,
and
wow.
then we had them until like the end of January. Just because it felt so much more festive and happy.
Months of Christmas. I love it.
It was crazy.
I love it. Anything to get us through that.
Yeah. So we might do that again. We'll see. My son loves putting up decorations. So we do that a lot in our house, even if it's the same decorations over and over.
Gosh, I'm just like thinking back to that COVID time now and just where my life was at that time and like what I was doing. I was working at a residential youth treatment center.
Oh, yeah.
And that was considered, what did they call it? Like an
essential business or whatever?
Yeah, an essential business. They were in essential healthcare. So like all these rumors of like, yeah, like people are... like they can't go to work and stuff. We were all like, oh, sweet. Are we going to get time off?
Yeah,
like finally?
That'd be sweet.
Nothing changed. Nothing changed.
And knowing the place you worked, they wouldn't have paid you for the time off.
No. And in fact, I was working more. So it was like, we didn't get any cool breaks, even for like a week.
You had to cover all the people who got sick at work.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And then the people that were smart enough to like, no, I'm going to get some time off. They just phoned in like, oh, got COVID again for the fourth time.
In a row. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I got to be out for 6 more weeks.
I got a sniffle. It's probably COVID. Mm-hmm. So I ended up working a ton.
What a weird time, man.
It was a
we
really
need to do an
time.
episode on pandemics. Now that we have been
would be really cool. Now that we've lived one.
Yeah, well, now that we're a little bit further removed from it too,
Sure.
We're not going to be like interested. CNN putting out a whole special on pandemics like week 2 of the pandemic. We get it, bro.
Gosh, we get it. We're living it. Anyway.
Right on, man. Well, we've wrapped up our Universal Monsters, Universal Studios Monsters.
We have, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, we had a lot of opportunity to watch some old school movies that I had never seen before, and I know you're the same, and we're like big movie buffs. In fact, we're such big movie buffs that we have another podcast called Third Row Critics.
You should check it out. It's not just the two of us. It involves a good friend of ours. His name is Ben, and he joins us for these movie reviews.
And we've heard it described recently as movie reviews that are accessible to the everyman, right?
There you go.
So, and we go back and we find random movies that we like from our childhood, things that we'd seen before. We almost hardly ever do new releases. So
you don't need to be up to date to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, it's almost like a historical movie review podcast.
It really is.
Yeah, it's nice.
And
it's cozy.
That's what we take pride in about it.
Yeah. But anyway, we had a chance on that because of that show, especially. We released a whole bunch of episodes in October that were the same topic for each show. So for each podcast, rather. So, we had like our last one was Frankenstein. So we released one from each podcast about Frankenstein. But yeah, we're kind of moved on past that now. So yeah, we're in it for the ride, man. So we'll see what kind of cool stuff we can dig up along the way, and it's going to be interesting, and Wikipedia is going to be just as big a part of it as it always has. So
absolutely,
it's good stuff. But I think this week is your week, right?
It is my week.
What are we talking about, baby?
You ready to dive in?
I'm always
ready to go explore. I'm excited for this one because now we're talking about monsters that bring up a lot of skepticism.
Okay.
Like we're talking about we're going to be talking
conspiracy
about
theory monsters.
Totally. Well, like, do you believe in ghosts type of thing? You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
hold on a second.
Do you believe in this? Do you
believe in ghosts? Before we start into this,
no, I'm not a big ghost guy.
For real? Not even a little bit?
I mean, I believe.
What's the creepiest place you and I have been together?
Creepiest place that you and I have been together?
Yeah, maybe the most haunted place or most closest to that. What do you think?
Gosh, a 7-Eleven at 1 a.m?
No, they're all haunted. That's a given. So
I don't know.
That's the only place you can see ghosts.
Do you have a place in mind? Because nothing's popping up. Especially when I was younger, I was not into the scary stuff. I didn't like scary movies. I didn't like messing with that stuff. Because I remember there was this house kind of in this neighboring farm community that was like the haunted house of the area. And everyone was like, hey, let's go out and try and break into it. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stay at home and do anything else. You know what I mean?
Is it the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, probably.
In Benjamin?
The Benjamin house.
Yeah. Which sounds creepy.
It does sound creepy. I think I told my wife about it maybe a month or two ago, and I don't remember where it is. We drove out. We were in the area, and I was like, I wonder if this house is still around. And I don't know if it is or if it isn't, but we drove around, and I couldn't really remember where it was. We were going to drive past it so I could show her.
I think I remember the road. Maybe I'll take my wife out there and see if we can find it. It's probably been demolished, honestly.
It may have.
It was just an abandoned house that somebody owned the land on, and they had a bunch of security cameras because teenagers kept on going there to do stuff.
And I don't even know if there was like an actual event, but there was rumors that stuff had happened there, and like all scary places do, it's just rumors, you know?
Yeah, maybe. But I think probably, if I'm thinking about it really, probably the creepiest place, I'd say maybe out on that wilderness treatment range down by Kanab, Utah.
Oh,
because that's like, a lot of it crosses over into like Indian reservation land and stuff like that. And
and there's a lot with that I don't mess with.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm like a ghost person. And I'm not saying that just because I live in a house that's 140 years old.
So you don't want them to come out?
Yeah. I for sure have screwed my crawl space access door shut so the ghosts don't come up. So maybe I believe it in.
You don't believe in ghosts, but you're not leaving any room for them to believe in you.
Yeah, you don't have to believe in earthquakes, but you still should probably prepare. But no, there is. Some of the stuff is we'll get into it. Like, I don't not believe in cryptids and spookies and things that go bump in the night. You know what I mean?
Listen, there's something that we could talk about on a completely different podcast. And honestly, I'd love to get my father-in-law involved in this because he's got some thoughts on it.
Should we invite him on the show?
That'd be a good time. But there's this theory that involves the national parks. That the reason Teddy Roosevelt created the national parks was basically to create a space for monsters, things that we don't understand fully, to have a space away from society and people. Because as the country was growing, we were expanding further and further into unknown territories, and people kept running into, let's just say, creatures.
Sure.
And so Teddy Roosevelt developed the national parks to kind of keep these places from being developed, to keep society safe from these creatures.
I think it'd be fascinating to, maybe we should start a whole limited series podcast about this, but to correlate those stories about national parks with accounts and writings and legends of Native American history.
I think that would be cool.
And see if stuff matches up.
People that have claimed to have had some experiences. And I say that, I mentioned my father-in-law because he was a big hiker. He was really close to joining the Forest Service and becoming a park ranger.
Sure.
So he's done some really extensive hiking into deep wilderness and has heard stories from other people and even had some really small experiences himself that he's mentioned. So it's enough for me to be like, maybe Teddy Roosevelt knew something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Anyway, talking about creatures.
Yep, spookies, things that go bump in the night, legends, whatever you want to call it. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of good stuff.
This week we are talking about the Chupacabra.
Oh.
Have you heard of the Chupacabra?
Yeah, it's what I call my neighbor. He's got beady little eyes and sharp teeth.
Because he sucks.
And he's always chewing food out of my trash.
Oh. So have you heard of the Chupacabra before?
Yeah, I just told you.
Oh, okay, sure.
I mean, of course I've heard of the Chupacabra. I mean, I've got the Wikipedia page pulled up on our screen here so we can both see, and not looking at it, I think, I feel like it's, I want to say it's like of Mexican origin, and I could be wrong. Maybe it's just Latin American origin, not specifically Mexico, but like a little gremlin thing, right? That's eats your kids and eats your wives and stuff like that.
Totally. You're pretty much spot on.
I mean, that's probably a straight up definition for every cryptid there is. I guess.
Bigfoot, the abominable snowman.
Hide your kids, hide your
Santa
wives.
Claus.
Santa Claus.
He's a cryptid, isn't he?
Yeah. Well,
this podcast is not for kids. Santa Claus is real.
But he is a cryptid.
All right, now put your headphones in.
Yeah. He does do murder.
So the Chupacabra isn't necessarily from Mexico, but at least that's not where it started.
Sure.
But it is more common to hear about it in like the southwest part of the United States into Mexico, and then through what they call Hispanic America.
Which would be what?
Which would be, so Latin America is basically all of South America. Hispanic America is all of Latin America where the primary language is Spanish.
Sure.
So all of South America, Central America, minus Brazil, pretty much. And like some of the small little countries whose primary language technically isn't Spanish.
Sure.
So, yeah, a good chunk of South America, Central America, Mexico.
Basically everything that has deep roots of colonialism, Spanish colonialism.
Well, 100% actually, because the big one where really this legend started is Puerto Rico.
Sure. Okay.
Which has big time colonialism.
Yeah.
In fact, we half own it still.
Yeah, it's still being colonized. So, in what seems to be no real productive way for Puerto Rico.
Not really. Maybe some tourism. But so Chupacabra is actually a combination of Spanish words.
Sure.
Which directly translates to goat sucker.
Okay.
Like that's the actual definition. So chupa means suck, and cabra is the word for goat.
So what you're saying is that me calling my neighbor a chupacabra has been more accurate than I thought it was.
Yeah. He hates you.
Because it works in Spanish or in English.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And the name comes...
Not a great joke.
The name comes from this, primarily this creature's method is sucking the blood of not just goats, but like a lot of livestock.
So it's kind of just like a giant, well, I guess I was going to say giant vampire bat, but no, I mean, that's true because vampire bats do like suck cow's blood.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's just kind of like a giant non-flying vampire bat.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what this thing looks like. We're going to kind of talk a lot about what this thing looks like, but in like different segments, because there's kind of like a couple generalized agreed upon things that it looks like.
Okay.
But it also depends on like where you're from, because there's such a huge range of area that believes in the Chupacabra.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? So physical descriptions will vary. In Puerto Rico and Hispanic America, like I talked about, it's generally described as this like kind of like a heavy set creature. They almost say like a small bear, but with more like reptilian type skin. Maybe even some have even described it as alien-like
weird
skin.
Okay.
With a row of spines going down its back. So go back. What was that picture you had farther up? Yeah. I feel like that one. more accurately describes it, where it's kind of got these big shoulders, it's hunched over, this like alien lizardish face, and then spines going down it. So that's like...
Make sure you check out our Instagram. We'll post the picture we're looking at.
So that's that's one of the two more popular depictions of it.
Okay.
And the second one is more dog-like. So a little bit smaller, more of a muzzle snout, and just hairy.
I know that.
So so there you go. That's not a bad one. It just looks
that's
like
a real picture.
Stray dog.
That's a trail cam. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they found one.
Yikes.
So because of that, it's hard to collect validity from some of this because there is such varying descriptions.
Sure.
Dependent upon regions. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel like that's how all of these
and that's
legends
fair.
are going to be, right?
The difference between Bigfoot and the Abominable Snowman is what season you're in.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
whether it speaks Nepalese.
Whether it's Canadian or...
Right.
So let's talk about the history of the Chupacabra.
Okay.
And that's how you have to say it.
Chupacabra.
Exactly.
All right.
So in 1975, there was a series of livestock killings in the small town of Moca, Puerto Rico, that were attributed to what they called El Vampiro de Moca, which is the vampire of Mocha.
Nice. Okay.
Initially, they thought that all of this was happening and that all of their livestock were being killed by a local satanic cult.
That's, in hindsight, that's probably more accurate.
I mean, that's probably exactly what happened, right?
Yeah.
But more killings started being reported across the whole island. And so people started saying, well, maybe it wasn't actually part of this cult. Maybe there's something more.
No way they could be busy enough to cover the vast distances of Puerto Rico.
Maybe the people didn't like to travel.
No way.
But
not for Satan.
Did I say that this was 1975?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Well, I mentioned to you before we started recording that, like, kind of this legend is a lot more recent than we thought, than you would think. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So this is 1975, and each of these...
I mean, that is kind of crazy, right? Especially coming off the heels of talking about, like, Dracula and Frankenstein and all these. Like, those are pretty deep-rooted. If not like legends of those are more deep-rooted, but even like the novelization of those are a couple hundred years old.
Oh, for sure, right? For sure, right? So all these livestock that they found, all of the farmers reported that the bodies of the livestock were bled dry through a series of small circular incisions.
Weird.
So
that sounds like Satanism to me.
It sounds 100% like Satanism.
Well, I should say satanic cults. Satanic cults and Satanism aren't the same thing, by the way.
That's true. We did learn that once.
Yeah. And believe it or not, look up Satanism on Wikipedia. It's actually quite an open-minded, welcoming institution.
I think you'll find more that you agree with than you disagree with, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, which is mind-boggling, but that's true, yeah.
So the first reported attack that kind of led locals and everyone else to agree that this was a thing that they named the Chupacabra didn't actually happen until 1995.
Holy cow.
So we were...
20 years later?
Yeah, we were born and alive.
Wow, barely.
So 8 sheep... It says that 8 sheep were discarded dead in Puerto Rico. Each of them had 3 puncture wounds in the chest area, and again reported that they were completely drained of blood.
Wild.
And this was in March of 1995. A few months later, in August, an eyewitness...
There's the train.
Pause for station identification.
There it is, yep. What the heck are we talking about?
We're talking about the Chupacabra and the first eyewitness report.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of the first report where people were like, there's something going on was in March of 1995. And then in August, an eyewitness named Madeline Tolentino reported seeing this creature in the Puerto Rican town of Canovanas, where they said as many as 150 farm animals and pets were reportedly killed. Canovanas, Puerto Rico. So kind of on the western Eastern. Just outside of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Technically speaking, everything is just outside of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, it's not a huge
No, it's not big. I mean, no disrespect. I would love if we had a listener base there, but yeah, everything's quite close.
So with all these reports going on of this, and they didn't have a name for it.
And you said 95 was the first?
1995
was the first eyewitness. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's right. And even at this time, they didn't really have like a name for this creature. Obviously, it was so new. So
it was just Ed.
It was just Ed.
Yeah.
It was just something is killing our livestock.
Okay.
So the term was actually coined by a Puerto Rican comedian and disc jockey named Silverio Perez.
Oh man, he's a dude born for disc jockeying.
Yeah, he is credited with coining the term Chupacabra soon after the first incidents were reported to the press.
Yikes! Remind me again what the English translation is.
Goat sucker.
Goat sucker. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that makes more sense when you're like, yeah, disc jockey came up with that. All right, checks out.
Right,
checks out. So shortly after the first reported incidents in Puerto Rico, other animal deaths started being reported in other countries like Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, the DR, El Salvador, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, and even the southern United States.
So is this more like a collective psychosis type deal?
I mean, it's starting to sound like that.
Like a satanic panic type thing? You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's like you hear about one thing and then it's like, oh, well, my cow died and if I squint hard enough, it looks like it was bled dry.
Or like something similar happened. You're like, that happened in our town too. Yeah. I'll bet it was the same thing.
I bet it was the same exact Chupacabra.
Boy, they travel fast.
He swam the ocean.
So after all these reportings started happening, a few years later, a guy named Benjamin Radford started writing a book about the Chupacabra. And his book was published in 2011, and it is called Tracking the Chupacabra.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very original.
Yep.
Are you sure it wasn't Tracking the Chupacabra, I'm doing it?
The Chupacabra is us. That was the first draft, but they're like, no, that's not it.
No,
his publisher said no.
It's too ethereal. Let's be direct.
No, what have you been doing the last 5 years?
Tracking the Chupacabra every Sunday afternoon. I'm doing it.
My relationships are dying.
Yikes.
So he concluded after his 5-year investigation.
Wait, it was literally 5 years?
Yeah. It took him 5 years to document all this stuff and then write this book.
To find out a fake creature was fake?
Well, I mean, he had to travel to Puerto Rico, to Central America, to South America, and start collecting stories.
Sure.
So that's a lot of air travel.
That's true. And I shouldn't say fake. We should put a call to action out here that if any of our listeners have ever had an experience with a Chupacabra, please email us, let us know, and we'll read them on air.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
We'd love to hear that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So he actually went to Puerto Rico and interviewed Madeline Tolentino, who's the woman who was the first report eyewitness. And concluded that the description that was given by her was actually based on the creature Syl in the 1995 science fiction horror movie Species. Because she gave...
Okay, so...
Would you like to retract your last statement?
Which one? The statement I was just about to give was... What was this dude's name that wrote the book?
Benjamin Radford.
So old Benny's starting off from a point of literally negative credibility, trying to figure out, he's listening to this lady. He's like, no.
And it's not
better. Chupacabra. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah, I've got one of those living in my basement, and it made its way over to Puerto Rico.
So it gets even better.
Oh, how? Really?
So this alien creature Syl that is nearly identical to this woman's description.
Yeah.
She also admits that she has seen that movie before.
Oh, perfect.
And in her own words, she says, well, obviously in Spanish, but translated English in her own words, she says, it was a creature that looked like the Chupacabra with spines on its back and all. The resemblance to the Chupacabra was really impressive.
Can we hear you say that in Spanish now?
Fue una criatura que se apareció como chupacabra con, gosh, how would you say, spines, Sobre su espalda.
Yeah. Well, shoot us an email. hello@otherbrothers.studio.
I have heard old women that speak Spanish as their native tongue describe things as sounds more than once.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's efficient.
They are very, gosh, what would you say?
Industrious.
Performative.
Oh, okay.
Performative group.
Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah.
I'll say culture. So anyway, there's my Spanish. I got to brush up on my Spanish.
You're doing better than me. Yeah, so, that's great. I told a guy I work with today that he was a what did I say? Tu papa está loco?
Tu papa está loco, yeah.
Yeah, and I delivered it. He's from Guadalajara, and I delivered it exactly as I just did. So it was basically a white slap to the face.
And he loved it.
Of his culture. Yeah.
So Radford.
So you're telling me she watched this movie and then she just like randomly saw this creature out the corner of her eye and made it up out of whole cloth.
Well, it almost seems like she had this event and then saw this movie and she's like, nope, that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, like that's what it looked like exactly.
Wow.
Crazy how they also saw the exact same thing that I did.
Crazy how you're going to start an entire conspiratorial movement based on your random association with an old movie.
So Radford revealed...
Tell me the movie again.
It's called Species. And it's a science fiction horror film that looks like was released in 1995.
A group of scientists tries to track down and trap a killer alien seductress before she successfully mates with a human.
Oof.
All right, go over to IMDb and look up Species and then get a good look at what
we found it.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. Yeah, for sure I did. I'm going to.
We're watching it now.
Yeah, we're going to watch it after this.
For sure.
Wow, that looks fantastic.
It's got a great cast, too. It's got Ben Kingsley. It's got the...
That's all you need, really?
Octoman from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I know that's like his least known... Is that Lawrence Fishburne? Or Forrest Whitaker?
Forrest Whitaker.
I get them mixed up.
Well...
Don't cancel me.
Forrest Whitaker has
He's got the eye.
The eye thing going on. But they are both powerhouse actors, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Alfred Molina, that's his name. I know that his role in the Spider-Man movies was one of his least notable, so I want to apologize to Alfred Molina.
It's easily the best role he's ever had. Give me a break, dude. Yeah, Forrest Whitaker. Wow, this is going to turn into an entire show just about the movie Species.
All right. So, talking about Radford again, he talks about his interview with Ms. Tolentino.
Okay.
And he says that he she believed that the creature and events she saw in Species were happening in reality in Puerto Rico at the time, and therefore concludes that the most important Chupacabra description cannot be trusted. This seriously undermines the credibility of the Chupacabra as a real animal.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one lady that's seen it just was watching Species, and it carried over into real life too much.
Well, as it often does. Let's be fair.
It does. It happens sometimes. Yep. It does happen sometimes. So.
Well, so how could we possibly go from here? So it truly was just something that was started out as a lie, and then as a
started out as a
got some feet
as a fabrication, and then led to a 5-year investigation, and then ended with a woman saying, "Yeah, I saw this movie, and the Chupacabra was in it."
Can you imagine how deeply disappointing and heartbreaking it would be for Benjamin to have interviewed her and found that out?
I'm sure he was so deflated.
Do you think that was the end of the 5 years?
That was his last one. He's like, it's all building up to this. I finally found the woman.
Found her, tracked her down.
I've got the interview scheduled. Like, we're going to lock it down.
Oh, no.
Species? That was a terrible movie.
This has been the last 5 years of this was supposed to be the crowning achievement of my career.
I was going to retire.
Yikes.
Oh, too good, man.
Disappointing.
Well, we can talk a little bit more about the alleged appearances of the Chupacabra, because like I say, there are many.
Okay.
So the most common description that we've talked about is the reptile-like creature that's got leathery or scaly greenish skin and sharp spines or quills running down its back. People that have, in quotes, witnessed one of these say it's approximately 3 to 4 feet high. 3 to 4 feet high.
Yeah, I mean, you're fine.
There we go.
Yeah. We understand.
And stands and hops in fashion similar to that of a kangaroo. So kind of like leans back on its back feet and moves around that way.
Is it weirdly ripped from the arms down like a kangaroo is?
I mean, it has to be.
You've seen pictures, haven't you?
All depictions we've seen on the internet would agree. So other common descriptions of the Chupacabra is a strange breed of wild dog. Which form is the form that most people claim is mostly hairless and has a pronounced spine ridge, usually pronounced eye sockets, fangs, and claws. And this is a more popular description that you will find in like Mexico and the southern United States. That's what a Chupacabra is.
That just sounds to me like a starving dog.
Yes. It later says, unlike conventional predators, the Chupacabra is said to... Oh, wait, let's see here. That's not the one I was looking for. But basically, this description just sounds like a starved dog with mange.
Well, that can be just as scary.
And sometimes honest. I think that's scarier.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to run into that.
So, should we talk about the plausibility of the existence of this creature?
I think we should.
Can we take a break first?
Please. Oh. I've been looking at you so long.
Hey, we're back.
We are back, and I just want to call out really quick that we just took a break. It's 11:15 p.m.
It's a late one.
And we took a moment as friends to go and have a little bit of charcuterie together. A little candied pepper bacon jelly on some Triscuits with some Jarlsberg cheese and smoked sausage.
That hit so hard.
Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and crave just that combination.
I get it.
I got to hold myself back or I'll eat through all my stocks.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome, brother. Then we just held each other and cried for 10 minutes.
It's just what we needed.
Anyway, I think that when we left off, we were talking about the plausibility of the Chupacabra. No?
That's exactly what we were about to talk about.
Nice.
So, a little bit about, I guess we're going to talk about Puerto Rico. We're going to talk about the different regions where all of this stuff has been happening.
Okay.
Farmers reporting mass mysterious killings of various livestock.
Yeah.
Which this creature is known as the Chupacabra, but really it discriminates against no livestock.
Kind of sounds like it. It seems like if it's in a field and it moves, it's free game.
I think Chupacabra was just the catchiest of them all. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like the Chupa-Vaca. I mean, that works, but it's not as good.
That's true.
The Chupapollo, the chicken sucker. That's what a Wukalar is.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
So they couldn't take that. But the killings started becoming associated with a Chupacabra when an animal carcass was seemingly untouched, other than like a puncture wound.
Sure.
Which, as they started looking into, they figured it was strange at first, but figured that it could be related to other things or could be notable towards other things. So,
like what?
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
So, most notably, these areas that experience most of these Chupacabra sightings also experience frequent and extreme dry seasons.
Okay.
So, in the cases of Puerto Rico, the cases in like the mid-90s and even in Mexico in the mid-90s, both countries were dealing with aftermath of severe droughts.
Sure.
So as they investigated kind of these areas within these countries, they noted certain dramatic violence in these killings in those areas.
Okay.
So these environmental conditions could have provided a simple explanation for the livestock killings, such as wild predators losing their unusual prey to drought.
Okay.
When there's a drought, less plants grow. I said that right. Less plants grow, which means the animals that eat those plants die off quicker.
Sure.
Which means the animals that eat those animals have less food.
And they have to search out for other stuff.
They're willing to take more risks to find more food, which typically ends up being livestock.
Right.
So animals like wild dogs, coming from the hills or wherever, going into farmland and attacking livestock. So the same theory can be applied to many of the other Chupacabra attacks.
Okay.
That the dry weather created a more competitive environment for the native predators, leading them to prey on livestock to survive. Such an idea can also explain the increased violence in killings, where hungry and desperate predators were driven to hunt livestock to avoid starvation, causing an increase in both the number of livestock killings and the viciousness of each one. Because now you have all these predators that are competing with each other for these killings.
Sure.
I'm going to redirect you again to Benjamin Radford's book, Tracking the Chupacabra.
Did you read that whole thing before we started this show tonight?
That book?
Yeah.
No. Okay, funny you say this. So
it's a 700-page manuscript reminiscent of the Unabomber's writings.
So I read well. So I was having this joke conversation with my wife earlier today, oddly enough. I know how to read. I'm not a fast reader, and when I sit down to read, reading makes me really sleepy.
Well, like everything does.
Exactly.
That's not exclusive to reading.
So I was talking with and just today at our house, like I was working on podcast stuff. My wife sat down to read a book.
Yep.
When I checked in on her later that day to see how things were going, she's like, "Oh, I finished that book and I've started a second one."
Nice.
It's like she's an incredibly fast reader and
right.
reads super well. And I was like, gosh, the last time I read a book in one day, the pages were cardboard. And I read it with my niece. So no, I did not read the entire of Benjamin Radford's book, Tracking the Chupacabra, today. But he mentions in his book that upon further investigation, they took some of these animals that were victims of a Chupacabra attack and performed some DNA testing on them to see if they could find anything.
Okay.
And pretty much all of them came back showing DNA evidence of another animal that was identifiable. So
okay.
some sort of wild dog, even like bobcats, things like that.
Okay.
So coyotes, if you will. So nothing that would conclude one to think that there's something else out there.
Right.
So more than likely a coyote with mange in a dry season hunting your goats.
But that's not as romantic as saying is the Chupacabra, right?
Not nearly as romantic and not nearly as everyone's seen a coyote.
Right. Yuck.
Yeah, terrible. I saw a coyote in Universal Studios one time. They're everywhere.
Telling people where to find the trash cans?
Yeah. I was like, you should be on the Warner Brothers lot, Wiley. Get it? Bad joke by me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's not nearly as cool as no, this was something else. It was crazy and growling and, wild. And it's like, no, you just saw a sick coyote.
Yikes.
He needed help and antibiotics. The best that science can do is say that there's a wild dog with mange. And that's kind of where the trail ends.
Really?
For the Chupacabra. Because there's really not many verifiable or even reliable eyewitness. I mean, this woman had the most reliable eyewitness statement, and she just got too wrapped up in a horror movie.
Yeah, well, sounds like it. Man, that's kind of disappointing because you hear about some of the cryptids seem like they have a lot more.
Oh, totally.
Like a lengthy history and sightings and whatever else. You know what I mean? I guess can be more believable.
So I got to show you this one because there's obviously a lot of crossover when it comes to cryptids.
Sure.
Like Bigfoot and the abominable snowman that we've mentioned. So there's a similar one that is related to the Chupacabra that is found, where legends of it are found more in the southeastern United States. Mm-hmm. There's one called the Ozark Howler.
Oh boy.
Which is a dope name. Which is basically from all the pictures of the folklore that I found, is basically this bear with these big horns of a ram.
The Ozarks are chock full of crazy stuff like that. Oh yeah, too.
Mostly the people.
Well, you get enough moonshine in you, and you'll see anything in the woods.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that thing.
Oh my Lord!
It's cool looking. I kind of hope that one's real. You know what I mean? So literally this bear with horns of a ram
and red eyes.
Red eyes, can see in the dark. A little more shaggy.
Man, that's
than
terrifying.
Your typical bear, right?
Yeah, we'll have to add that into the Instagram too. That's nuts.
It's pretty cool. If you have any stories, if you're a listener from the South and you know anything about the Ozark Howler, if you're one of the people that's seen it, please write us in.
Check it out. Hit us up. Yeah, please.
So that's what I got. That's our first one, the Chupacabra.
Wow. Well, I can't say I'm not a little bit disappointed. I
get that. I think I was just getting a little too far in this. I was like, I can't turn back now. And this is one that everyone's heard of.
Yeah.
So it's I'm glad to put it to bed.
I really thought that it had a little bit more rich of a history instead of just like this one lady lied and then this other dude wasted 5 years of his life.
This one lady mixed up a little bit too much of a movie with her own reality.
Well, haven't we all?
Every once in a while.
Well, thanks.
There it is. Check it out. Tell us your own personal stories with the Chupacabra.
Please
or
do.
Any other cool cryptid or something scary you saw in your backyard.
Yeah, honestly, if you've got any kind of spooky story of an encounter of any kind with anything supernatural,
or even a meth head.
Yeah, shoot us an email to hello@otherbrothers.studio.
You can send us a DM at Low Grade Research Pod on Instagram. You guys can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Other Brothers Studios and find this show, as well as our sister podcast and other stuff soon to come.